The movie begins with a little boy named Peter cycling to the beach to meet a group of soldiers. Upon getting there, he tells them that the local party chief instructed him to guard the seashore. The soldiers tell him that their party chief fled and he should stop bothering them. A man loading people onto a boat asks him about the Baroness and the girls in the orphanage. He tells them to tell the Baroness that his boat will be heading to Denmark and they need to leave the island very soon. Back at the orphanage, the Baroness, her maids, and the girls hide in the basement. The Baroness inquires about Peter's whereabouts, but none of the maids know where he is. Afterward, Peter wanders into the forest and sees some soldiers approaching. He quickly hides from them as they pass by. The soldiers head to the beach and begin to shoot at the people. After the soldiers leave, Peter goes towards the bodies and takes a soldier's cap and gun. Some of the soldiers spot him and run after him. He makes his way to the orphanage barn and hides there. The Baroness comes out and tells the Russian soldiers that there are no German soldiers on the property and that only children live there. She then tells one of the maids to go get the girls. Peter comes out to the barn wielding the rifle. The Baroness pleads on his behalf and tells them he's just a child. The soldiers retrieve the gun from him and knock him out. In the next scene, the Russian army infantry moves into the orphanage. The infantry captain asks his second-in-command if Peter has woken up and tells them to take him to the dragon. The infantry leader tells his assistant that the orphanage gives them an advantage of seeing the German troops coming and arresting them. He is reminded that the war is over and doesn't need all the military tanks. The infantry leader tells him to support him in front of their superiors when the time comes. He also tells him to get Peter some toys. The infantry leader walks around the orphanage with Peter. He asks him about his room and how he learned to speak Russian. Peter tells him that he learned that from his aunt. The man goes through Peter's belongings and takes out some harmful objects. He asks him if he has any more weapons, and Peter says no. Afterward, Anna watches some of the Russian soldiers loading up some of the maids into a van and taking them away. Up next, the soldiers complain about the cannon that has gone bad and tell the leader they cannot shoot. The leader speaks to the Baroness about the safety of the orphans in the house and the other women. He tells the Baroness that she and the orphans can leave anytime they want. She asks him about Peter, and he tells her that he would be treated as a prisoner of war for shooting at his men. The Baroness performs surgery on the soldier that was shot and takes out the bullet from his leg. Peter takes a bucket outside to get water and goes to see Anna, who has been hiding in the barn. She tells him to promise not to leave her there. Peter gives her his word and leaves to get water. Afterward, one of the Russian soldiers spots a battalion of German soldiers at the beach and goes to report it. He tells them that the German soldiers don't know that they're at the mansion. One of the men sends the transmission call to their superiors asking for reinforcements. They tell him that the reinforcements will come in the next morning. The captain tells them that the beach is filled with German soldiers and he needs tank support because they are outnumbered. The captain informs his men that they have been told to arrest the Germans without the tanks. He takes 5 of the men, including Peter, along with him as a translator. They head to the beach and see the German soldiers waving the white flag as a sign of surrender. The German soldiers tell them that they have been ordered to board a boat to Denmark and surrender to the British Army. The captain tells them that they have to surrender to him, but the German soldiers tell him that they don't want any trouble and will be surrendering only to the British Army. The captain and Peter return to the orphanage, and the Russians prepare to attack the Russians. They use the cannon to blow up the boat coming to pick up the remaining German troops. The German soldiers inform their colonel that there are just 8 Russians and some orphan girls at the orphanage. He asks them if there is another way to get on another boat, and they tell him that there is another boat 4 kilometers away, but there are other Russian soldiers scattered around. In the next scene, Peter tells Anna she has to spend another night in the barn and informs her that there are soldiers at the beach that will save them. A Russian soldier comes into the barn and discovers them. Peter tells him that he just discovered her and she works at the orphanage. The soldier asks Peter if he is hiding anything else or does he have to search everywhere. The captain reports the incident to the Baroness, but is interrupted by his soldier, who comes to tell him that the German soldiers are still at the beach. Peter goes outside and watches the soldiers. The German soldier asks the colonel why they cannot attack the Russians. The colonel tells him that they have surrendered already and do not need to fight. Back at the orphanage, the orphans and the soldiers gather in the dining hall to have dinner. One of the soldiers sees Anna with her hair cut short and tries to harass her. Peter reacts violently, and the other soldiers grab him. The captain commands the soldiers to leave Anna alone and sit back at the table. To prevent any of the soldiers from going near Anna, he tells them that she now belongs to him. Afterward, the soldiers tie Peter to his bed to prevent him from running away or causing any trouble. The soldiers who harassed Anna ask them why they follow the captain's instructions. The soldier tells him it's because he is their leader, so if he asks them to do anything, they do it immediately. The soldier tells him that the captain lost his entire family during the war. Afterward, the captain brings Anna to his room and asks her to sleep on his bed while he sleeps outside. In the next scene, the soldiers discuss their plans when they return to Russia after the war is over. One of the soldiers, named Truba, says he would go to a bar and order lots of alcohol and food and then go for a walk in the park with his wife. In the kitchen, the Baroness tells the cook that they have always told Peter he is the man of the house even though he wasn't a man yet. The next morning, the Russian soldiers discover that the German soldiers had left the beach. Afterward, 3 of the soldiers take Peter along with them to the beach and make it into the water. Back at the orphanage, the Baroness goes to the captain's room and asks if her maids could help fix and wash the soldiers' uniforms as a reward for not harming them. The captain tells her that it would not be necessary. They talk about their past for a while and the impact of the war in the cities they grew up in. Back at the beach, the soldiers make Peter catch fish for them in the water. The captain comes to the beach and immediately asks them to bring him out of the water. The soldiers tell him they can't swim, so he goes into the water to get Peter out. Afterward, the captain asks Peter how he was able to load a pistol bullet into a machine gun. Peter told him he just tried it and it worked. The captain tells him that he reminded him of his 12-year-old son. On their way back to the orphanage, they come across a German soldier returning from a farm. The German colonel instructs his soldiers not to attack and then they leave. Back at the orphanage, the captain rips Peter's trousers and makes them into short trousers. Peter angrily throws a tantrum in his room as he observes the German soldiers sitting at the beach and waiting for a rescue boat to arrive. Outside the orphanage, the Russian soldiers do some laundry while the others assist the girls in preparing the fish. Anna and Peter see one of the soldiers playing the piano and asks him to play some German music. He tells them though he hates Germany, he loves their music. Peter becomes jealous of the attention Anna is paying to the Russian soldier and angrily walks away. Up next, Peter sneaks out of the orphanage and goes to the beach to see the German colonel. He tells the colonel that the Russian soldiers do not have a missile and enough ammunition. The colonel asks him what the Russians are planning. He tells them that the captain requested reinforcements and that there are only 8 soldiers with 1 injured. He tells the colonel about the captain and tells him that they need to come and rescue them immediately. The colonel thanks him for his information and tells him he will send a signal soon. Back at the orphanage, the captain instructs his men to keep watch over the beach and make sure the German soldiers don't leave. He tells them that they have been ordered to arrest them. Later that night, Peter watches dejectedly as the German soldiers are seen loading some weapons into the boat while the others stand by at the beach. The captain asks Peter why the German soldiers are not trying to rescue them. Peter tells him it's because they are cowards. The captain brings out his gun and tells Peter to take it and shoot him. Peter refuses to take the gun and asks him to tell him everything about the war, and the captain tells him the story of a young boy who wanted to become a doctor but became a soldier during the war and died. The captain tells him that if the boy had become a doctor, he would have been able to help more people. Peter asks him if the boy in the story was his son, and the captain tells him yes. He also tells him that a father cannot influence the fate of his son. Up next, Peter and Anna go swimming at the beach. Afterward, Peter asks her if she no longer likes him. He asks her if she now likes the Russian pianist, and she tells him the Russian is a man while he is just a boy. Some German soldiers approach them and ask Peter why he didn't inform them that the Russians were going to destroy their boat. Peter also asks them why they did not attack the Russians. Peter and Anna leave and head back to the orphanage. Back at the orphanage, Peter sits with the Russian soldiers and watches them complain about not being able to return home. They tell him stories about the captain and the sacrifices he made during the war. Afterward, Peter sees Anna and the pianist heading to the barn and follows them. He catches them kissing in the barn and yells at them. The pianist faces a disciplinary committee led by the captain and they accuse him of violating Anna. The pianist tells them that he loves Anna, and she loves him as well. The captain tells him that his fate will be decided by the military court and places him under arrest in the meantime. He asks the other soldiers to lock the pianist in the basement. Days later, information reaches the soldiers and everyone at the orphanage that Germany has finally surrendered and the war is over. The soldiers rejoice and celebrate the news. They all gather outside to have a celebratory meal because they know they will be returning home soon. Afterward, a Russian major and his team arrive at the orphanage and try to convince the captain into giving him some of the girls. The captain refuses and the major threatens him. The captain tells him that they have been instructed to protect the orphanage and everyone inside. The major brings out his gun and shoots it in the air, but the captain attacks him and retrieves the gun. The major and his men leave angrily. The captain sees the major bringing in reinforcements and quickly tells Peter to run to the beach to ask the Germans to come and rescue the orphans. He tells the Russians' reinforcements that they have been instructed to protect the orphanage, and he would do so. Afterward, the captain tells his men that they are free to go if they want to. One of them leaves, but the others choose to stand and fight with him. The soldier who goes to meet the reinforcements gets shot by them. The major's men begin to shoot at the house. Meanwhile, Peter goes to the beach to search for the German soldiers but cannot find them. Back at the orphanage, the captain's men continue to defend the orphanage against the rebellion Russian soldiers. Peter eventually finds the German soldiers and together they return to the orphanage. The German soldiers stand and fight alongside the captain and his men against the rebellion Russian soldiers. He instructs that they lock Peter in the basement to prevent him from getting harmed. The fight lasted till the morning, with many casualties including the German colonel. At the captain's request, the German soldiers take Peter, the orphans, and the women to the beach where they escape to Denmark. The movie ends here. Thanks for watching, guys.